The first time I saw him, the world didn't stop at shattered. The Miami sunset bled across the sky, a riot of orange and pink. And there he was, sitting at the pool bar, one stool away, like he'd been waiting for me my whole life. I wasn't ready for the way his presence pulled the air out of my lungs. My name is Javier Morales, and I'd come to this rooftop bar at the Delano Hotel to escape. Not from anything dramatic, just the grind of my graphic design job, the endless deadlines, and the nagging voice in my head that said I was wasting my 20s in a cubicle. Miami was supposed to be a reset, a weekend getaway with my friend Mia, who was currently flirting with a bartender across the pool. I was alone, nursing a mojito, when he slid onto the stool beside me. His name was Caleb Jackson, though I wouldn't learn that until later. He was tall, with skin like polished ebony and a smile that could have lit up the night. His linen shirt hugged his broad shoulders, unbuttoned just enough to hint at the strength beneath. He ordered a whiskey neat, his voice smooth as the jazz playing softly over the bar's speakers. I tried not to stare, but my eyes betrayed me, catching the way his fingers tapped lightly on the counter, like he was keeping time to a rhythm only he could hear. "You here for the view or the vibe?" he asked, turning to me. His eyes, dark and warm, held mine like they knew something I didn't. I laughed, caught off guard. "The view, I guess. Though the vibe's not bad either." He leaned in slightly, just enough for me to catch the faint scent of his colonus sandalwood and something sharper, like citrus. "Good choice. Miami's got a way of making you feel alive." I nodded, my throat tight. I wasn't used to this random guy striking up conversations, especially not guys who looked like they walked out of a magazine. I'd always been the quiet one, the guy who blended into the background. Growing up in a small Texas town, I'd learned to keep my head down, especially about who I was. Being gay wasn't something you shouted about where I came from. Even now, at 27, living in Austin, I kept my guard up. But Kalebi had this ease, this confidence that made me want to lower my walls. Just a little. We talked. Small things at first: the heat, the music, the way the pool reflected the skyline like a mirror. He was a photographer, he said, in town for a gig shooting a fashion campaign. I told him about my designs, the logos and websites I crafted for clients who rarely appreciated the work. He listened, really listened, his head tilted, his eyes never leaving mine. It was disarming, the way he made me feel seen. The bar grew louder, the crowd thicker, but it was like we were in our own bubble. Mia texted me, saying she was heading to a club with the bartender, leaving me to my own devices. I didn't mind. Caleb's laugh was infectious, and every time he leaned closer to hear me over the music, my heart did something unfamiliar, something reckless. Then it happened. His hand brushed mine on the counter, a fleeting touch that could have been an accident. But it wasn't. He looked at me, his smile softening, and slid his hand onto my thigh, his fingers warm through the fabric of my shorts. It wasn't bold or possessive, just natural, like we'd done this 1,000 times before, like we'd always belonged. My breath caught. I should have pulled away. I should have said something, anything, to break the spell. But I didn't. I couldn't. His touch was a question, and my silence was an answer. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. I nodded, my heart hammering. "Yeah, I'm good." But I wasn't. I was terrified. Not of him, but of what this moment meant. I'd spent years hiding, building walls to keep myself safe. And here was this man, tearing them down with a single touch. The night stretched on, and we talked until the bar started to empty. He told me about growing up in Chicago, about the first time he picked up a camera and saw the world differently. I told him about Texas, about the suffocating weight of expectations, about the freedom I'd found in Austin but never fully embraced. He listened, his hand still resting lightly on my thigh, grounding me in a way I didn't know I needed. When the bartender called last call, Caleb paid for both our drinks before I could protest. "Come on," he said, standing. "Let's walk." We wandered down to South Beach, the ocean whispering against the shore. The air was warm, heavy with salt and possibility. He stopped by the water's edge, his silhouette sharp against the moonlit waves. "You ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what it is?" he asked. I swallowed, my chest tight. "All the time." He turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "Maybe it's this." And then he kissed me. Not tentative, not hesitant, just sure, like he'd known me forever. I kissed him back, my hands finding his shoulders, my heart racing with something I hadn't felt in years: hope. But hope is a dangerous thing, because as we stood there, wrapped in each other, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was too good, too fast, that something was coming to break us apart. The next morning, I woke up in my hotel room, the memory of Caleb's kiss burning in my mind. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, painting the walls gold, but all I could think about was the way his lips had felt, urgent, certain, like a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. I checked my phone, half expecting a text, but there was nothing, just silence. I met Mia for breakfast at a cafe on Ocean Drive. She was all smiles, buzzing from her night out, but I was distracted, replaying every moment with Caleb. "You okay, Javi?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Not a ghost," I said, forcing a smile. "Just someone." Her eyes lit up. "Spill. Now." I told her about Caleb, about the bar, the walk, the kiss. She listened, her grin widening with every word. "Javier Morales, you dark horse. You're falling for this guy, aren't you?" "I just met him," I protested, but my cheeks burned. Was I? Could you fall for someone in a single night? Mia leaned forward, her voice softening. "Look, you deserve this. You've been so careful, so closed off. Maybe this guy's your chance to let go." I wanted to believe her, but letting go meant risking everything I'd built: the safe, quiet life I'd carved out in Austin, where no one asked questions about who I loved. Caleb was a storm, and I wasn't sure I could weather it. That afternoon, I was sketching by the pool when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "Meet me at the bar tonight, 8 p.m. Caleb." My heart leapt, then sank. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I didn't chase strangers or let myself get swept away. But my fingers typed back before my brain could stop them: "See you there." The pool bar was quieter that night, the crowd thinner. Caleb was already there, leaning against the counter, a beer in hand. He wore a white t-shirt that clung to his frame, his smile as disarming as ever. "You came," he said, like he doubted I would. "Didn't have anything better to do," I teased, sliding onto the stool beside him. We fell into conversation like no time had passed. He told me about his latest shoot, how he'd spent the day chasing the perfect light on the beach. I showed him some of my sketches, rough designs for a client's branding project. He leaned close, his shoulder brushing mine, and pointed out details I hadn't even noticed myself. "You've got an eye," he said. "You see things most people miss." His words hit deeper than they should have. I'd always felt like I was hiding in plain sight. But with Caleb, I felt exposed in a good way, but terrifying all the same. As the night wore on, he suggested we head to a nearby club. I hesitated. Clubs weren't my scene: too loud, too crowded, too much like the chaos I'd always avoided. But his hand found mine under the bar, a quiet reassurance, and I nodded. The club was a pulse of music and light, bodies moving in a blur. Caleb pulled me onto the dance floor, his hands on my waist, guiding me into the rhythm. I wasn't a dancer, but with him, it didn't matter. We moved together, his laughter in my ear, his breath warm against my neck. For the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom comes with a price. As we left the club, sweaty and breathless, a group of guys lingered near the entrance. One of them, a stocky man with a buzz cut, eyed us as we passed, his gaze lingering on our clasped hands. "Fags," he muttered, loud enough for us to hear. Caleb's grip tightened, but he didn't stop. "Ignore them," he said, his voice steady. But I couldn't. The word hit like a slap, dragging me back to Texas, to the whispers and stares I'd grown up with. I pulled my hand away, my chest tight. "Javi, you okay?" Caleb asked, stopping to face me. I nodded, but I wasn't. The night had been perfect, and now it was tainted. I wanted to tell him I was fine, that it didn't matter, but the words stuck in my throat. Because it did matter. It always had. He stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "You don't have to hide with me. Not ever." I wanted to believe him. But as we walked back to the hotel, the weight of that word followed me, a reminder of why I'd always kept my guard up. Caleb was everything I'd never let myself want, but the world wasn't as kind as his smile. The next day, I couldn't shake the unease. Caleb had texted me good night, but I hadn't replied. I wanted to, but every time I started typing, that word faxicode in my head. It wasn't just the slur. It was what it represented. The judgment. The danger. The reason I'd spent so long keeping my true self locked away. I stayed in my hotel room most of the day, sketching aimlessly, trying to lose myself in the lines. Mia noticed my mood but didn't push. "You'll figure it out," she said, squeezing my shoulder before heading out to explore the city. I envied her confidence, her ability to move through the world without fear. By evening, I couldn't avoid it anymore. Caleb texted again, "Dinner tonight. There's this spot on Lincoln Road I think you'd love." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. I could ghost him, let this weekend fade into a memory. It would be safer, easier. But the thought of never seeing him again felt like losing something I hadn't even realized I'd found. I met him at a small Cuban restaurant, the kind with mismatched chairs and salsa music spilling onto the street. He was waiting outside, his camera slung around his neck, his smile as warm as the Miami night. "You look like you're carrying the world," he said, his eyes searching mine. I forced a laugh. "Just a long day." Dinner was a blur of flavors: ropa vieja, plantains, mojitos that burned my throat. Caleb talked about his work, about capturing moments that told stories. "That's what I love about photography," he said, leaning forward. "It's not just what you see, it's what you feel." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept seeing that guy from the club, his sneer, his judgment. I wanted to tell Caleb, to explain why I was pulling back, but the words wouldn't come. After dinner, we walked along Lincoln Road, the street alive with tourists and street performers. Caleb stopped at a fountain, the water catching the light like liquid stars. "You've been quiet," he said, his voice gentle. "What's going on?" I hesitated, my hands shoved in my pockets. "Last night, what that guy said. It got to me." Caleb's face softened, but there was a fire in his eyes. "I know. It's ugly. But you can't let people like that define you." "It's not that simple," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "You don't know what it's like, growing up where I did, hiding who I am, knowing what people would say, what they'd do if they knew." He stepped closer, his voice low. "I do know, Javi. I grew up in Chicago. Not exactly a paradise for a black gay kid. I've heard worse than what that guy said. I've seen worse. But I decided a long time ago I wasn't going to let their hate stop me from living." His words hit hard, but they didn't erase the fear. "I'm not like you," I admitted. "I'm not brave. "You're here, aren't you?" he said, his hand brushing mine. "That's braver than you think." We stood there, the fountain's hum filling the silence. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into this into us. But the fear was a shadow, always lurking. The next day, Caleb invited me to his shoot on the beach. I went, partly because I couldn't say no to him, partly because I needed to see him in his element. He moved with purpose, directing models with an ease that made everyone around him relax. I sat on the sand, sketching him as he worked, capturing the way his eyes lit up when he got the perfect shot. Afterward, we grabbed coffee at a nearby cafe. He flipped through my sketchbook, his fingers lingering on the drawing of him. "You make me look better than I am," he said, grinning. "You make it easy," I replied, and for the first time that day, I felt lighter. But that night, the shadow returned. We were at a bar in Wynwood, surrounded by graffiti-covered walls and hipster crowds, when I saw him, a man from my hometown, someone I hadn't seen in years. He was older now, but I'd know that face anywhere. He'd been one of the ones who'd made high school hell, who'd thrown slurs like punches. And now he was here, in Miami, his eyes locking onto mine across the room. I froze, my heart pounding. Caleb noticed, his hand finding mine under the table. "What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. All I could think was that he'd seen me. He'd seen us. And if he told anyone back home, if word got out. "Javi," Caleb said, his voice cutting through the panic. "Talk to me." I shook my head, pulling my hand away. "I need to go." I left him there, confused and hurt, and walked back to my hotel alone. The Miami night felt suffocating now. The lights too bright, the air too heavy. I thought I could be someone else here, someone free. But the past was never far behind. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face, heard the slurs from high school, felt the weight of being found out. By morning, my phone was buzzing with texts from Caleb, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. I was spiraling, and I hated myself for it. Mia found me on the hotel balcony, staring at the ocean. "You look like hell," she said, sitting beside me. "What happened?" I told her about the bar, about the man from my past. She listened, her face softening. "Javi, you can't keep running from this. You're not that kid anymore. You're allowed to be happy." "I don't know how," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. She hugged me, fierce and unyielding. "Start by texting him back. He deserves to know what's going on." I knew she was right, but it took me hours to work up the courage. Finally, I sent Caleb a message. "Can we talk? I'm sorry about last night." He replied almost instantly, "Meet me at the pier." 6 p.m. The Miami Beach pier was quiet that evening, the tourists thinning out as the sun dipped low. Caleb was there, leaning against the railing, his camera resting beside him. He didn't smile when he saw me, but his eyes were kind. "I'm sorry," I said, before he could speak. I freaked out. There was this guy at the bar, someone from my hometown. He knew me, back when I was still in the closet. Seeing him brought it all back. Caleb nodded, his expression unreadable. "You could have told me. I would have understood." "I know," I said, my throat tight. I've spent so long hiding. It's hard to stop." He stepped closer, his voice soft but steady. "You don't have to hide with me. But I get it. It's not easy, letting go of that fear. I've been there." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't just saying he'd lived it. "How do you do it?" I asked. "How do you live so openly, knowing what people can say, what they can do?" He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "It's not about not being afraid. It's about deciding what's worth the fear. For me, it's living my truth. loving who I want to love. And right now, that's you. My breath caught. He said it so simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And maybe it was for him. But for me, it was a leap I wasn't sure I could take. We walked along the pier, the waves crashing below us. He told me about his own struggles coming out to his family, losing friends who couldn't handle it, facing rejection in a world that wasn't always kind. But he'd found a way to keep going, to build a life that was his own. I want that, I said, stopping to face him. I want to be brave like you. I just don't know if I can. You already are, he said, his hand finding mine. You're here, talking to me. That's a start. We kissed again, softer this time, but no less intense. It was a promise, a beginning. But even as I leaned into him, I couldn't shake the fear that this was temporary, that the world would find a way to tear us apart. The next day, Caleb had another shoot, but he invited me to come along. It was a small gig, just him and a couple of models at a mural-covered alley in Wynwood. I watched him work, marveling at how he made everyone around him feel at ease. He caught me staring and winked, and for a moment, I forgot to be afraid. After the shoot, we grabbed tacos from a food truck and sat on a curb, the city pulsing around us. He told me about his dream to open a studio, to create art that told stories of people like us, people who'd fought to be seen. I told him about my own dreams, the ones I'd buried under practicality, designing album covers, illustrating books, creating something that mattered. You should do it, he said, his eyes bright. You've got the talent. Don't let fear hold you back. I wanted to believe him, but the man from the bar was still in my head, a reminder of everything I stood to lose. That night, as we lay in his hotel room, his arm around me, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining what would happen if my family found out, if my coworkers knew, if the life I'd built came crashing down. Caleb stirred, his voice sleepy but warm. You're thinking too loud. I laughed, despite myself. Sorry. Just scared. He pulled me closer, his lips brushing my forehead. I know, but we'll figure it out. Together. I wanted to believe him. But as I lay there, his heartbeat steady against my back, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would test us both. The next morning, I woke to find Caleb gone. A note on the pillow, early shoot. Meet me for lunch. See? I smiled, tracing his handwriting with my finger. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future with him, not just a weekend, but something real. Lunch was at a beachfront cafe, the kind with wicker chairs and umbrellas flapping in the breeze. Caleb was already there, his camera on the table, his smile brighter than the sun. You look happy, he said, as I sat down. I'm trying, I admitted. And I was. For the first time, I felt like I could be honest with him, with myself. We spent the afternoon exploring Miami, wandering through art galleries and street markets. He took photos of me when I wasn't looking, laughing when I caught him. You're photogenic, he said, showing me a shot of myself smiling against a backdrop of colorful murals. I barely recognized the person in the photo, someone open, alive, unafraid. But the fear wasn't gone. It never really was. That evening, as we sat on the beach, watching the waves, I told him about my family, about my parents, who'd never accepted the idea of me being gay, about my brother, who'd cut me off when I came out, about the weight of their disappointment, which I carried every day. Caleb listened, his hand in mine. That's their loss, he said, his voice firm. You're incredible, Javi. If they can't see that, it's on them. I wanted to believe him, but it wasn't that simple. Family wasn't just people, they were roots, history, the foundation of who I was. Losing them had left me unmoored, and I wasn't sure I could survive losing more. The next day, things took a turn. We were at a rooftop party. A friend of Caleb's hosting a launch for some local artist. The vibe was electric music pulsing, drinks flowing, people laughing under strings of fairy lights. Caleb was in his element, charming everyone, his hand resting lightly on my back. I was starting to relax, to let myself enjoy it, when I saw him again, the man from my hometown. He was across the room, talking to a group of people, but his eyes found mine. He smirked, a cruel twist of his lips, and raised his glass in a mock toast. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a coincidence. He was here, watching me, and I knew what that meant. I grabbed Caleb's arm, my voice tight. We need to go? Now. He frowned, confused, but followed me out. On the street, I told him everything about the man, about high school, about the fear that had followed me for years. Caleb's face hardened, but he didn't let go of my hand. He doesn't get to ruin this, he said. Not us. But I was shaking, the panic clawing at my chest. You don't understand. If he tells people back home, if my family finds out, then we'll deal with it, Caleb said, his voice steady. Together. I wanted to believe him, but the fear was too strong. I pulled away, my voice breaking. I can't do this. I'm not ready. Caleb's face fell, but he didn't argue. Okay, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere. But you need to decide what you want. Javi, I can't do that for you. I left him there, the city lights blurring through my tears. I walked for hours, trying to outrun the fear, the shame, the longing. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't escape the truth. I was falling for Caleb, and it terrified me. The next day was my last in Miami. My flight back to Austin was in the evening, and I hadn't heard from Caleb since the party. I wanted to text him, to apologize, to beg him to give me another chance. But every time I picked up my phone, I froze. What could I say? That I was scared. That I wasn't enough. Mia found me packing, her face serious. You're really going to leave without talking to him? I don't know what to say, I admitted. I messed up. Then fix it, she said, tossing me my phone. You're allowed to mess up, Javi, but you're not allowed to give up. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Finally, I typed, can we meet? Before I leave. He replied within minutes, beach. Same spot as the first night. 4 p.m. The beach was quiet, the sun low in the sky. Caleb was there, sitting on the sand, his camera beside him. He looked up as I approached, his expression guarded but not unkind. I'm sorry, I said, sitting beside him. For running. For pushing you away. He nodded, his eyes on the waves. I get it. It's hard, letting yourself be seen. But I meant what I said. Javi, I'm not going anywhere. I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I'm scared. Of what this means. Of what people will say. Of losing everything. But I'm more scared of losing you. He turned to me, his eyes softening. You're not going to lose me. But you have to choose Thesis. Not because I'm pushing you, but because you want it. I looked at him, at the man who'd seen me when I'd spent so long hiding. And I knew. I wanted this him. Us. The messy, beautiful possibility of it all. I choose you, I said, my voice steady for the first time. He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. He pulled me into his arms, and we kissed, the waves crashing around us, the world fading away. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But life doesn't let you stay in those moments. As we sat there, wrapped in each other, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice show. Morales. Wait till everyone back home hears about this. My blood ran cold. It was him, the man from the bar, from the party. He'd seen us. And now he was threatening to tear my life apart. Caleb saw my face and grabbed my phone. His jaw tightened as he read the text. "We're not letting this guy win," he said, his voice fierce. "You hear me? We're stronger than that." I nodded, but the fear was back, sharper than ever. I'd chosen Caleb, but at what cost? The flight back to Austin felt like a countdown. Every mile took me further from Caleb, from the person I'd been in Miami. But that text, the threat followed me, a shadow I couldn't shake. I hadn't responded, hadn't told Caleb what I was going to do, because I didn't know. Back home, the world felt smaller. My apartment, my job, my routine, they were safe, familiar, but suffocating. I kept expecting that man to make good on his threat, to post something online, to call my family. Every notification on my phone made my heart race. Caleb called that night. "You okay?" he asked, his voice warm despite the distance. "No," I admitted, "but I'm trying." "We'll figure this out," he said. "I'm coming to Austin next weekend, if you want me to." I did, more than anything. But the fear was still there, whispering that this was a mistake, that I wasn't strong enough. The week dragged on. I went to work, smiled at my coworkers, pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. On Thursday, it happened. A message from my brother, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Heard you're living it up in Miami." With a guy? My stomach dropped. It was happening. The man from the bar had talked. I didn't respond, didn't know how. Instead, I called Caleb, my hands shaking. "It's out," I said, my voice breaking. "My brother knows. It's only a matter of time before my parents do." Caleb was quiet for a moment, then said, "Come to Chicago. Stay with me for a while. We'll face this together." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Run away. That's your solution." "Not running," he said. Choosing us over their hate." I wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't that simple. But the truth was, I was tired of hiding, tired of letting fear win. That weekend, Caleb flew to Austin. He showed up at my apartment with a camera and a smile, like nothing could touch us. We spent the day together, walking through Zilker Park, talking about everything and nothing. He took photos of me, of us, capturing moments I wanted to hold on to forever. That night, we sat on my couch, his arm around me. "What do you want, Javi?" he asked. "Not what they want. What you want." I thought about my family, my job, the life I'd built. And I thought about Caleb, about the way he made me feel alive. "I want this," I said. "I want us." "Then we'll fight for it," he said, kissing me softly. "No matter what." The next morning, I got another text from my brother. "Mom and Dad know. They're not happy." I stared at the words, waiting for the panic to hit. But it didn't. Not fully. Because Caleb was there, his hand in mine, reminding me I wasn't alone. I didn't respond to my brother. Instead, I posted a photo Caleb had taken of us on the beach, his arm around me, both of us smiling. I captioned it, "This is me." No explanations, no apologies, just the truth. The fallout came, as I knew it would. My parents called, their voices heavy with disappointment. Friends from back home unfollowed me online. But there were others, colleagues, Mia, even a cousin who reached out with support, with love. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. Caleb stayed in Austin for a week. Then I went to Chicago with him. We built something new, together, late nights talking, mornings sketching while he edited photos, moments of quiet joy that felt like home. The world didn't change overnight, but we did. We chose each other, every day, despite the fear, despite the hate. And in the end, that was enough. Because love, real love, isn't just a moment, it's a fight, a promise, a life. And with Caleb, I was finally ready to live it.